Tell me why Tesla suck.
Well, all right, so you're dropping that on me. So I'm not anti anything per se.
Very quickly, before you tell us that, tell us your history with them.
So my name is Wout. I'm from the Netherlands, from Europe. And when the Teslas, like the four-door Teslas first came to Europe, like some of my clients had pre-ordered them. And we were like handling all their car needs. So we were like doing the maintenance on their car, crash repairs and whatever. So they got like the first 3 Teslas in Europe and the 5th Tesla in Europe. And we were like picking them up from the factory, or like they have like a sort of a assembly thing to evade taxes in Europe. And we were picking them up from there, and like we ran them for these clients. So that was like 2011, I think, 2010, 2011. So back then I was like, I had no opinion about them. I was like, okay, cool, this is something new, it's gonna be fast, because those clients of mine liked fast cars, like they had like outrageous BMWs and race cars and stuff. So that's why they got them. So that's my experience with them, and obviously I think my country, the Netherlands, has the highest absolute number of Teslas sold in all of Europe, which is weird because it's a super small country. It's the size of Los Angeles.
But you have crazy tax rebates and all this stuff.
So it's
the
like
government
100.
basically help buy them.
It's 100% sold by the government. So the government, the Dutch government, is the biggest seller of Teslas. Because they didn't even have a dealer network. You couldn't even get winter tire. Like we need to have like winter tires on in the winter and stuff, because we occasionally have snow and all that stuff. You couldn't even get that. Like there was no infrastructure at all. But the government was pushing them so insanely intense that if you had a business, they were almost free. You know what I mean? Like if you took all the tax credits and all that stuff. Like for instance, in Amsterdam, where I live, there's a 5 to 10 year waiting list for parking permits, and people pay a single car storage in the city where you could park like one 350Z is like between 100 and 200,000 euros. So roughly 120.
Sounds like you shouldn't have a car there.
Yeah, so that's what they're trying to do. However, the public transportation is also very expensive and not adequate, so you're not doing anything without a car. Like I live in the city center of Amsterdam, but my shop is like 20,000 square feet, so it cannot be in Amsterdam, so my shop is close to the airport, and if I go there by public transportation, it takes an hour and 20 minutes and it costs 36 euros, and if I go there by car, it's 20 minutes and it costs 5 euros.
So going back to the Teslas.
Yeah, so that's the explanation. Yeah.
How much have you actually worked on the Teslas?
We didn't, because they were brand new, so they had to go to the Tesla shop, like they have this one thing. And then yeah, so I didn't do much work on them. Like I speak to a lot of people that work on them a lot, because there's so many of them. Out of principle, I don't want them in my shop. I'm anti-EV, so I don't want them in my shop because of the fire hazard. Okay. So we're not doing anything with it, but I know a lot of mechanics and a lot of like car salesmen.
All right, so now we have your history of your relationship with Teslas, your country's relationship with Teslas. Why do you hate them so much? Why are they terrible? Why do they suck? And I'm going to argue the other point, because I want a Model 3 dual motor.
Yeah.
I think they're rad. And I talk to Wout all the time. He's like, goes crazy about him.
Yeah.
So I am the pro and he's the con.
Yeah.
Tell me.
So I get triggered by him, and not by the product, although the product is not what it's made out to be. So people think it's like something new. So yeah, Tesla really has got this breakthrough in EV. They don't have a breakthrough in EV. They've maybe improved existing stuff that's been around for 100 years by 10%, but all their breakthrough really was with the Model S was that they had much more batteries. So it's the same as taking a 1968 Dodge Charger and putting a bigger gas tank in it and saying that that's a breakthrough because it can drive further. That's not a breakthrough. If you take a semi-truck and you would have the cargo area filled with batteries, it could drive 10,000 miles. That's not a breakthrough, that's more batteries. So I think that that's overstated a lot. Obviously they're not great quality cars like fit and finish and all those kinds of things, but I have to say the same about almost every other modern car, like a Mercedes or a BMW or even a Porsche, is also not what it used to be. So that's not how I hate them.
You're saying it's not a breakthrough, but why do you hate the cars?
So, like I said, it's not. So the product is a little bit hyped up, but that's fine. Like I think that all modern cars are hyped up and not as good as they should be. So I don't hate them for that reason, although that's a fact that it's not a real breakthrough.
And sponsor time, thank you so much to BC Racing Coilovers, the most supportive coilover company in the entire industry, who swept Formula D and all kinds of stuff recently, supports the grassroots scene so much. Drifting would not be the same in the United States without them, and neither would Lone Star Drift or Drift Week. So thank you so much, BC Racing Coilovers. Thank you to ECU Master for supporting another Drift Week. The other Drift Weeks would not have happened without ECU Master's support. So thank you so much, ECU Master USA. Thank you for making great products such as standalone ECUs, power distribution modules for your cars, all kinds of cool boost controllers, sensors, all kinds of stuff. Thank you so much, ECU Master. Thank you to Y-Plate Imports out of Portland. If you need an imported car from Japan before they get too crazy expensive, it is your time to buy one right now. Contact them. They'll tell you how much it is to find your car. They'll get you in touch with how to do the whole process. They'll show you auctions. They'll tell you everything. Just contact them. Also, thank you to Torco Fuels and Oils for coming on board. It is awesome to have a great company like that, both helping out with money to help throw the event, but also with product. So we'll be using their products on the trip. We're gonna incorporate them in the drag racing to see if we can get the turbo cars to go a little bit faster by adding some more boost and some more octane. So thank you so much to those guys. And thank you so much to Drift HQ. Drift HQ is bringing out the Drift Van Support Vehicle, which really helped out on Drift Week 2. They carry so much stuff. They're out of Florida. They're bringing it all the way to the Pacific Northwest. They support so many drifters from around the world. Drift HQ is a huge company now with tons of products. Go to their website, see what they sell, support the companies that support the content that you watch. Thank you so much. Did we cover them all, Si?
Yo.
All right, back to our normally scheduled stuff.
People who are really interested should Google like Jay Leno's Baker Electric, which is an electric car from 1911. He's got an episode on it on Jay Leno's Garage, and it's like 110 years old. And if you look at how small the batteries are and how much range that thing has, and there's batteries that are filled with normal distilled water, and he drives like 70 miles range with it. So you could do that in 1911.
And you could also drive a Model T in 1911.
Yeah. So anyway, so
They had batteries back then. They had
batteries
gas
back then. Yeah.
The
So
storage system.
Yeah.
But a Model T is definitely not the same thing as like a modern car. And that little Baker thing is definitely not the same thing as a modern
No, but the
car.
Baker Electric could do 70 miles with a battery that's like, you have BMW 5 Series.
Yeah, but it also
like
had no safety ratings. The tires were this big.
So, but the batteries are like, you have a BMW 5 Series. The batteries on Jay Leno's Baker Electric are two of the same size that's in the back of your BMW 5 Series.
And it
They're
was
this
pushing
big.
a 400-pound vehicle.
So, but the batteries are like...
Can't have a 400-pound vehicle anymore.
Yeah, but how much less do the batteries weigh in that thing compared to the batteries back in the Tesla? You know, so the car may be 3 times as light, but the batteries is 10 times as light. And it's not dangerous because it's not lithium-ion, so there's no thermal runaway. It's just like a normal battery with distilled water, like nothing can happen with them. Like you could throw them in the ocean for all you wanted. So that's the thing. So it's not a real breakthrough. People may argue that. That's totally fine. I don't care. So why I don't like them, it's not because of the product. You know?
I wanted him to yell. He's being too polite.
I'm not
right now.
yelling ever. Like, I'm fine. I'm just happy to be in America. So why I don't like them is because they're communism. And I don't like communism at all, and nobody in the world should like communism. If you do, talk to somebody who's been under a communist regime, or talk to somebody in Venezuela, which was one of the richest countries in South America, and after one socialist communist regime, now is on the verge of like fucking breakdown. So it's communism. Why is it communism? Because governments are pushing it. So the government is pushing people in my country, people in Europe, to buy them. And they do it using tax money, and that's like bad.
Yeah.
I think that any product that needs government stimulation and stuff like that to be successful is not a good product. Like, I don't like that at all. So let's say in my country there's so much tax in the car. There's like 60 to 70% tax in the car. Like your BMW 5 Series would be like 80 grand. The equivalent Tesla would also be 80 grand if the same tax is applied, but they've got like that price down to like 40 grand. So it's not fair in
So you don't
competition.
hate the Tesla itself, and you don't hate the technology. You just hate the government that promotes it and
Yeah.
subsidizes it.
If somebody
I can't defeat that argument because
No.
I kind of feel the same way.
Yeah, you
I
should.
think why should the government help rich people buy new cars?
But that's the thing.
Because
it's
they're rich people cars.
I'll tell you one thing that's also very weird. So the 2011 models I was talking about, so the first Teslas in our country, like I think they were the first.
I thought you were going to say they catch on fire.
They
They're
do.
dangerous.
We're
The
not there
government
yet.
follows
We're not
you.
there yet. We're not there
Okay.
yet. We're not there yet even. Like you asked me something, now you're going to get it too, you know?
Yeah.
That's a thing. because I thought this through, and I've seen this with my own eyes. So you could say in Europe is like I'm like a traveler from the future for Americans, because you guys now have a different administration.
That's the most ethnocentric thing I've ever heard.
So, but
Europeans always think they're better than Americans.
No, I'm explaining it.
You just said you're from the future compared to us.
But you didn't let
we're
me finish. You didn't let me finish, so it becomes like a negative thing, which is fine. Like I love that. I love that you do that. So if you let me finish when you have your drink, I'm going to explain why. Because I don't mean like I'm from like some kind of superior future. I mean with the whole climate thing. So you guys now have a new administration in the White House for some bizarre reason I won't even go into. But so now the House and the Senate is both Democrats. So what are they going to do? They're going to start doing all their climate plans and Paris Accord. The Paris Climate Accord is the biggest nonsense invented. Like that's,
explain to us within 20 seconds why, or 30 seconds.
So
just
because
super simple.
Because it's like an agreement between countries. Like a lot of countries sign it, like European countries, Scandinavian countries, blah blah blah. Like basically rich countries sign it, and it's about reaching climate goals like no emissions by 2050 and no cooking on gas. Like a lot of people still cook on gas in Europe. I don't know in America, but like we cook on gas, or heat our homes on gas. And they say like, yeah, by 2025 it's outlawed, and they hinge all kinds of laws on that agreement. And the dumb thing is that only these super rich countries which have insane tax rates are subscribing to it. But countries like India, China, Brazil,
the ones with the actual
the ones that actually do
populations that
95% of the, and that's also where the biggest gain could be found. Like in my country, we're like the size of LA and we've got 17 million people. There's no way for us to put all these windmills and solar parks. Like we just don't have that square footage. So what my country ends up doing is paying other countries, like Scandinavian countries have like these lakes where they generate electricity from the pressure of the water or something. I don't know, there's a certain term for it I can't come up with now after 26 hours of traveling. But so there's a lot of these Scandinavian countries that have very little population and a lot of space, and they have like elevation, so they've got these lakes.
You're saying that you use a lake as a battery to pump water up
So a
during
lot of these
high
Scandinavian
energy
countries easily make these climate agreement things because they have very little people. And they're extremely rich, so like they have oil or other resources, whatever, and they are like over their limit, so they're like so far under their limit that they're awarded like points or certificates which they could sell to other countries. And since my country is super small and super intensive, there's so many people on a small spot, you know, and we've got big harbors and all those kinds of things because my country is like kind of like the funnel, the port to industrial giants like Poland and Germany. So that's how it works. So we're a trading country. We don't produce anything. We don't have space for factories and stuff. So my country is never ever going to be able to reach those standards. And those standards that they agreed, like let's say that they agreed certain standards 5 years ago, every year they change them and they make them more tight. They say like, yeah, we said no more fossil fuel by 2050, but it's going to be 2045, you know. And this is not the people speaking. It's not like they're not choosing. This is not a democratic thing. This is a bunch of 70-year-old white people flying around the world in private jets, banging their assistants.
I said 30 seconds. You're going over.
All right.
Make the end of the point. Like
so the end of the point is this is like.
I have to keep them on task.
This is total nonsense. So the Paris Climate Accord, it sounds good on paper, but it makes no sense at all.
I thought you were going to say how they constantly change where like you can't have a 10-year-old car anymore in the city center.
Exactly what I mean.
So you got to sell your car and then you got to get
I had that. I had to change my car 3 times in 3 years' time because of that. And they changed the rules within those 3 years' time. So they said like, I get a letter. I get home, there's a letter from the city.
So you own a car that's like a 2015 or 2010 and you can't legally drive it.
You can't legally have it. So they give you a deadline. So it all works with deadlines. So I come home, there's a letter on the doorstep. Like, hey, sir, you've got this and that car. In 8 months' time, you can't have it anymore. So I'm like, damn, that's bad. And I sell it. And I buy another car. And then so that's allowed to be in city limits. And then I try to put my parking permit on it, which takes 5 years to acquire. And then it doesn't work. And then I get an email back from the city says like, hey, that car, you're allowed to drive it in the city, but you can't get a parking permit on it. So I'm forced to buy another car. You know, and it's a zero-sum game. It never ends. And it's not like they're saying like you need to have a car that has this and that emissions level. No, they say if it's older than 2010, you can't drive it. If it's older than 2005, you can't have it. So it makes no sense. If somebody would say to me, there's a certain emission level and we're measuring it in the city and there's a huge problem, you can only have this and that emission, level. But
So this is destroying cars that already exist that still work
and
well.
it's basically
It's like a cash for clunkers thing.
It's a cash for clunkers thing. What happens with those cars? They get exported to Romania, Bulgaria, or other countries, and they drive there happily ever after.
That's why the Polish get such cheap cars.
Yeah, because it's like cars from in Germany.
It's a tax on everybody else, so they can have super cheap
and they say
stuff.
that's cash for clunkers. So there's no way that they go to Poland. They need to be destroyed. It doesn't happen. You know how it happens. Like somebody goes to a junkyard, and somebody needs to fill out a form. And
so that's one reason that you dislike Teslas is because it's government subsidies.
Yeah.
You feel like it's communism and stuff, but you haven't attacked what is actually bad about Teslas yet. I'm sure you have something to say because I like driving them because they are fast, really, really fast. No gear changing.
An elevator is fast as well. Like I don't care about that. I call them.
But you like race cars.
Yeah, but I like race cars because of the emotion, because of what it does to you.
So
like
you don't
it touches
feel emotion
your soul.
from going fast acceleration?
No, I don't at all. And it does nothing for me. Like it's fast acceleration, but like I said, if you go to we've got skyscrapers, if you get into the elevator, you get that same feeling. It doesn't do anything for me. And it's also like it's the exponent of a culture that I really, really don't like the big corporations and stuff, like all these blue collar businesses and the middle class getting wiped out in Europe, in America, and this is like the poster child for this corporate takeover where it squeezes everybody out and companies become faceless. So the Tesla way they work with cars, like they are violating European laws by not allowing independent shop to get parts, which is against European regulation. We've got something called Monty regulation, which means that the Mercedes dealer cannot tell your independent shop,
we have
we're
that
not
too.
selling. Yeah.
So how do they get away with that there?
They don't, like they do, because the problem is that I could go on for ages like this. So
okay, then let's not go on for ages.
Yeah, so here's the thing. So the government wants it so bad that anything that Tesla does,
this sounds like you don't hate electric cars, you hate government.
If electric cars
I
were on a
accidentally got
level
him into a
playing
government
field, sorry.
thing.
So
Yeah, I got political.
but it's like this is going to be a fountain of words. Yeah, but I'm not even.
No, there's
there.
100 reasons why you can
I don't
hate
like
something.
them either. But it's like a free market. Like I like free markets. If somebody wants to buy a purple 12-liter truck with 30-inch wheels, that's fine. Buy it. If you want to buy it, get it. I don't care.
Then why are you mad at me for buying a Tesla?
Because it's
I haven't
like
bought
I
one
said.
yet.
Like I said, it's the poster child of something that we should fight with every fiber in our body because it's like.
I thought you were going to complain about fires.
That's I wasn't there yet.
That.
It wasn't there. So they catch on fire.
Okay.
They have something like.
Have you seen one catch on fire?
Yeah,
in your own eyes?
I sent you the pictures.
No, with your own eyes.
Yes.
Where?
There was a dealership, a Tesla dealership, and one caught fire.
So you were watching the thing catch fire?
Yeah, they catch. The weird thing is that they catch fire like when they're getting charged all the time, and that's spontaneous combustion. They also catch fire when there's nothing attached.
Have
to
you
them.
ever seen a gasoline car catch on fire?
You know how many gasoline cars I tried to let catch on fire when I was young with my two brothers when we were trying to do weird.
I saw a driftweed car catch on fire.
Yeah, that happens. So.
It melted.
You know
the wheels.
how many normal combustion cars exist versus Teslas? And the problem is, like a normal combustion car, no matter how shitty it is, how bad, rotten, like I just came from Aruba where people make do with whatever they have. There's a lot of fire hazards there on cars. Like people will run cars indefinitely there. And they piece together a piece of tube with this and a brake line there for fuel line, whatever. Nothing happens. Like cars don't burn down there. My country, brand new Tesla, 2021 Tesla. Even a bigger story, like a BMW i8 was parked inside a BMW dealership, brand new car, 0 miles, ready for delivery. Then somebody smelled something, it started smoking, they drove it outside, it caught fire, thermal runaway, they couldn't do anything with it. The fire department had to come and they have this 20-foot container with an open top, completely filled with water.
Is it on the back of a flatbed or something?
Yeah, they've got some special, like it's probably like a 400,000 euro fire truck thing that all these fire brigades now need to have because of electrical cars, which is all tax money, of course. So, and they needed to lift the thing up and put it in that 20-foot container, submerge it. And it took like 3 or 4 days before it stopped bubbling and hissing and whatever. It's a brand new car, you can throw it away. And you've got like a 20-foot container filled to the brim with contaminated water. And that's like, this was like when there weren't many of those cars around. It happens all the time. There was one in Belgium when we were talking about it on Facebook. I posted like 8 pictures in a row. That was like 5 minutes Googling. And the problem is, if you have a normal car, let's say that somebody's FD car catches fire, like that Ferrari caught fire in, was it Long Beach? The Italian man's...
You can put it out.
You can put it out, you know, you can put it out. And it was like with normal fire extinguishers and stuff. Like the Tesla, no fire extinguisher in the world. You need to submerge it in that thing.
Yeah, I was watching a thing on how to battle the fires given to the fire departments, and it's just like shoot water into it for hours and just like keep as much water in that
The problem
thing
is
as
it's one cell, so it's like 6
Right.
or 8,000
Yeah.
cells, so they go from one to another, and there's no way to isolate it, and that's a really big problem. And that's what I don't like about that is that if that would happen to a diesel truck, our government would use that as an excuse. Look at that! It's incredible. They catch fire. It would be all over. There would be diesel specialists in talk shows saying, like, "Oh, those diesel trucks!" And now it's being wiped under the carpet, saying, "No, it's not so bad. It's not so bad." Makes no sense.
I'm going to go in a
It's
different
biased.
direction for a second instead of political. I was going to say, if you are being sold another product to say that you need to be green or something like that, you're on the wrong path. The only way to have like some type of no emissions or anything else is for humans to not travel, to not be given the ability to travel. Like they can't have another type of car to replace another type of car to be more green, because we saw even with the Prius, if you went with the Prius and you suddenly got 50 miles a gallon, you would drive twice as much because you're incentivized to drive more
So
because you
you're
save
going
money.
further.
And
You're like, oh, I'm going to
Right.
go see my
So
niece. Yeah.
There's at no point where a human will really start doing less CO2 emissions. You know what I mean? Because
I know exactly what you mean.
Unless you stop letting them drive or
Yeah.
travel or have some
So
type of...
unless
and
you
that's
like
an
take away their rights.
Right. But I was going to say it's an urban density problem. So like even talking about Teslas or gasoline cars or diesel cars, that's not the problem. The problem is urban density and people commute an hour each way and all these crazy things.
Well,
you
it's
don't
just
live where you
population
work.
growth.
It's not just
wealth
population growth, though.
Growth,
It's
wealth.
density.
Yeah.
Like Chinese people don't need bikes to have cars to have a billion people in the city. They all just travel by bikes or mass transit or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like the politics of green stuff and everything else with Teslas and gas cars and diesels, where I just kind of wanted to chat about the cars themselves, because
Right.
I don't believe that a Tesla is ever going to be greener.
No,
I mean, it
it's
might
not.
be this much greener, or 50% or 70. Even if it was 80% greener, people would just use it more. They would trade them out differently.
Yeah.
It's not an answer to the problem.
And there's another thing. Like
So-
if you throw this tax money at
Wait,
it,
wait, wait.
you're going to run out of it. So,
Right, but
so they're going to
that's more
change
government
it back.
stuff. Let's talk about the cars
well,
themselves.
The cars
So
are a
I
very
see-
big government component.
I
isn't
see
it?
like the race cars now that are electric, and they do lack the sound and they do lack things, but it's interesting because they are so fast, and we're seeing lap records being trashed on like Pikes Peak or different
Fantastic,
things.
great.
It's cool.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's
But
neat.
it's like a
interesting.
side thing. It's the same as like tractor pulling.
It is a
I don't
side
know
thing.
much about tractor pulling. I've never spent $1 on tractor pulling. But if people want to do tractor pulling, fine. The problem with EV is like it's gonna cannibalize on normal motorsports, and especially right now in the COVID situation where everything gets shut down. I'm not gonna say that COVID is fake or whatever. I'm just gonna say that we're in a situation where everything is shut down. Events like sporting events, drifting events, racing events, it's all shut down, and everybody accepts it because it went step by step by step by step.
Yeah.
I mean, you're old enough to remember what flying in a normal plane,
Oh,
economy
it was
plane.
amazing. Kids don't know that.
Yeah. So now, so
You
what?
could run
what-
up to the plane and, like, hug
so
your
what
loved
now?
ones.
What
You could
now?
walk
What?
in and drop something
What?
off.
Like, first class is in 2020. That was what economy was in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
So, and why do people accept it? They pay 4 times as much for a plane ticket with half the space because it's done by little steps.
I think plane tickets are actually cheaper now than they were 50 years ago. They've gotten cheaper
Yeah, but
to
people
travel.
have got less buying power. But let's not go in there. So the thing is
Okay.
that the government is like inch by inch they're changing things. So right now they have a fantastic. So you know how to say never waste a good crisis. So regardless of
We're back on the politics, man.
yeah, but it's
I wanted to
100%
talk about the cars.
politics.
It
If
is,
Elon
but-
Musk would say, "Here's my electrical car," it's your car in my country would cost 88 grand. Elon Musk says, "Here's my car, it's 88 grand." I would have no problem with it. I don't like it, but
No, it is
I don't
government
like front-wheel
subsidized.
drive cars. Do I mind if people buy them? No, I just don't buy myself.
Right, but on the other side, the oil industry has been subsidized forever. There's the arguments of all this stuff. Everyone is subsidized. The corn industry is subsidized. You can't hate the player for playing the game or
Why not? Who
however that
says
is.
that?
But anyways, my point is I wanted to talk about the merits of the cars themselves. Have you driven a fast Tesla?
Yeah.
And you don't like them at all?
No. Have you driven a 1966 Corvette, like a nice restored one, a big block Corvette, a 1966? Drive it and drive a Tesla. Then tell me which one you want.
I mean, I have newer Corvettes. Do you like the old Corvettes more than the new ones?
What everybody should do, drive a big
By the way,
1966 Corvette.
I daily a Humvee.
Great.
I'm just saying, like, I like dumb cars.
Fine.
This is not trying to replace all my other cars.
I don't have,
I like
like,
uncomfortable junk like old Corvettes
It
as
feels
well.
like the Teslas, they feel like a phone to me. They feel like an appliance. They're, like I drive the M3, which is a car, one of the first cars that like was available to the masses, which had more than 100 horsepower per liter, which was back then only Ferraris. That's an amazingly good car. And it's like 2004, it's a pretty old car. I get a feeling with that car when you drive it, you know, it's so good. And that's like a peak of automotive history. And there's a couple
I'm
other
not
cars.
discounting that stuff.
Yeah,
This
but
is just
like,
something
so
different.
if you drive that car with that exhaust note and that throttle response and that
I get
whole
more of an
balance that
emotional
car-
response driving a little dual motor Tesla than I do an
Why?
E46
Like,
M3.
what's wrong with you? And you should also understand that like your preference and your love for them does not come for free.
I think it's because I've driven so many M3 chassis, because I've owned probably 15 M cars.
So it's the novelty. That's why people
Yeah,
cheat,
it's the
because they
novelty.
know their wife and they don't like the person that they cheat with better than the wife. They just want something else. I think that that's bad reasoning. Like, and also, like, you're trying to pull it away from the political thing, but you can't disconnect the political element from it. And what you also cannot disconnect, like you make your living with drift cars. You live cars, like that's your passion, that's your thing. Even if it
I'm
makes
not
no
saying
economical
everyone
sense.
needs a Tesla
and you
or
are
anything.
jeopardizing that by loving Teslas and by buying Teslas and by not opposing them. Like
I
I
haven't
would
bought
say,
one yet.
I'm for free market and people should do what they want, but they should also understand that EV is a vessel to
One
get
second.
rid of
When was the
your-
last time you bought a brand new car?
How does that have anything to do with it?
Because I'm going to say something too. When was the last time you bought a brand new car?
I think that was like 2011 or something.
Right. I don't buy new cars either.
Yeah.
Neither of us are going to go buy a new Tesla or a new BMW.
So-
That's an irrelevant part of the conversation.
No, it's not.
irrelevant part of the
No,
conversation.
no, it's not.
Because we're not going to go out and buy
What
that
does that have
stuff.
to do with buying
No,
them
because
new?
we're not part of the market that even buys new cars.
What does that have to do with you and me are buying? What does that have to do with them? Is it
Because you said I'm going to like put myself out of business by going to buy a Tesla.
Yeah, because
Neither,
like you're helping mass adopt Teslas. You're going to buy a second-hand one, knowing you're going to get a great deal and find a good one or whatever. It's all fine, all the best, great. Anyways, so you're helping mass
I'm going to get
adopt
one
them
that was
because-
only slightly on fire.
Great, fantastic, do it. You know, yeah, it's fine. Anyways, so but the guy that you buy it from has another new one made, like the batteries are being mined in Congo and with little kids dying and stuff. So you are perpetuating this industry by buying a second-hand one, and the person that you buy it from is probably some business owner who wrote all that tech stuff up, but basically had it for free. So you buy it for $8,000 and the guy basically had it for free. So that's the thing. He buys another one. So you're filling the world with these Teslas, and when enough people have them, the government has enough leverage to outlaw S13s, Mustangs, Subarus. That's going to happen. And people say, you're crazy about it. No, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. They're never going to get away with that. Trust me. In Europe, it's already happening. There's already deadlines for internal combustion cars. There's no way that if every internal combustion car would vanish into thin air, like in the Avengers, when all the Avengers
Okay,
vapor.
so you say they're
there's no way-
soulless
so
and
hold
you
on,
hate
let me
about
finish
the
this-
economics
I'll
and
finish this
political
one
part of
sentence. If all these internal combustion cars in Europe would vanish tomorrow into thin air, there's no way that EV could take their place. Like, our power grid is like a factor 150 undersized for that. That would cost like half of the gross national product, like 450 billion. Our gross domestic product is 900 billion. It would cost 450 billion to make the power grid do or accept the amount of Tesla that our government wants it to have. And then it's still not green energy, it's still like coal energy. So it makes no sense. What EV is like you're flying in a perfectly good plane. There's nothing wrong with the plane. Somebody tells you, the plane is going to crash, the plane is going to crash. That's the climate thing. They're going to say, the plane is going to explode, we need to do something now. And you're like, oh, there's nothing wrong. I mean, I'm fine. Like they said this in 1990, they said this in 1930. I'm okay. And then what happens is they're a stupid idea. And the stupid idea is EVs. And it's like a parachute. And they open the door of the plane, they throw the parachute out. Like, there you go. And then they're going to jump after it. So they're going to do something which is not necessary because the plane's not going to crash. And what they're going to do doesn't make sense. It's EV, you know. And they're going to implement it and force you to do it. And as they are making people buy them, they're going to come up with solutions for the problems, not up front. It's the same as saying, like, everybody should run their car on Coca-Cola tomorrow. And as soon as everybody has bought those cars, we're going to find out how to make cars run on Coca-Cola. No, show me how to run that car on Coca-Cola first. I'll be the first to buy one. You know, it makes no sense. It's like jumping after a parachute. put the parachute on first, then jump out of the plane. First get that infrastructure going and show me like the set plan, like in 2010 we're going to have this, I'm going to have that, I'm going to have that, and it's going to grow in the same rate as people are buying Teslas. But it's not possible. If the government would get their way with the amount of electrical vehicles in Europe or in America, like the Biden administration talks about these things, and they're going to come back with the 7,000 stimulus, so there's going to be 400,000 cars for every EV manufacturer that gets $7,000.
They're talking about 10,000 now.
Yeah, so insane. So that's communism. You know, that's taking people's money and pushing it into like people that probably don't even have a car. And they're
no, that is wild. Somebody that drives $1,000 Tercel is going to have to subsidize someone's
and also like, and that's like
Tesla.
one thing. So I'm like on one side of this discussion, and there's a lot of people on the other side of the discussion. But even if I move myself away from my standpoints and I agree with them and I place myself in their world, in their standpoints, there are so many contradictions. I don't even have to be in my camp. If I'm in their camp and saying like, okay, let's do this, it still doesn't make sense because it's impossible to get that kind of energy. And if you would be able to get that kind of energy, it's not going to be green. You'd have to fill the entirety of Europe, everybody's backyard, with these windmills. And what are they made of? They're made of carbon fiber, copper, aluminum. You know how ridiculously bad for the environment is to aluminum? If we have to weld steel in my shop, we need like 16 amps. Weld steel plate. Aluminum, you need like 80 amps. And why? Because it transfers heat so well. So all these electric cars are made of immense amounts of aluminum because otherwise they would be like 10,000 pounds. Aluminum is the worst for production in the world. You know, that's so bad for the environment. It takes so much energy to produce aluminum. If you take
That's why they do all the processing over in Iceland or whatever with geothermal,
but it doesn't matter.
right?
So it doesn't mean that like in Iceland it doesn't like there's like borders where this climate stuff doesn't happen. It makes no sense. It's like it's so
But
bad.
I'm
It's
saying
so
they're
hypocrite.
using geothermal instead of coal or something like that.
So, but it, yeah, but like
All right.
they're not
well,
doing
I
that
think
right.
we're getting
So,
a little bit
anyway,
argumentative.
so yeah, so
I
that's
think
one
that
thing.
you would just have to fix urban density or something to be able to, like, you can't fix the problem of climate change by having electric cars.
You could fix climate change really easily with automotive stuff because we've got something called biodiesel, which is made of plant waste, and you could implement that immediately. Every semi-truck
but you
in
just-
America, and the governments don't do it. And why do they do it? Because in Germany, so there's this thing called, it's called blue diesel in Europe. So it's made from plant waste.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from corn. It doesn't come out of the food chain. It's made from plant waste. And there's three main companies that do it. In Finland, there's Neste, which is part state-owned. Exxon in America makes it, and Bosch, which is a huge engineering firm in Germany, also
Is it more
developed it.
efficient than ethanol? Because ethanol
Yeah,
totally
way more.
didn't
It
work.
does exactly the same thing as this. So it doesn't consume more fuel, it doesn't hold less energy, but it reduces emissions by 85%. And it could go in any excavator, stacker, truck, boat, semi-truck tomorrow. Like you could put it in a 1980 6.2 General Motors V8 diesel.
Now you're
and you
talking
could-
my language.
Yeah, I have one of those.
That's what they come in Humvees.
I have that motor in my C30.
I'm sorry.
No, it's great. I love it. It's simple. It's an apocalypse vehicle. Anyways, sorry. So that's the thing. So you could put it in your Humvee, and you could put it in a brand new BMW, like 2000 psi direct injected diesel. You don't have to change anything. And people say like, yeah, but there's probably something wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. Like there's no downsides to this blue diesel.
Why haven't they been making it
Here's
for a
the
while?
thing. I'll tell you right now. So Robert Bosch AG, which is the big engineering firm in Germany, everybody's got Bosch relays in their cars and stuff. It's a massive, massive company, like 110 years old or whatever. And they can provide enough of this biodiesel to run Germany, Europe, everything, combined with this Neste company in Finland. What does the German government do? They forbid it. You can't put it in your car. And what's the reason for that? The official reason for the German government, which is one of the biggest leading European countries, for not allowing biodiesel is this: because they made their policy for EV. You know what that means? That's huge. What I just said is huge.
But if it was,
so this
if it was
voids,
commercially available, why haven't they just been doing it?
that's what I just said. So it makes no sense. So this voids
Well, I'm just saying they
everything
could have
about
just
the
been putting
environment.
it
So
into
that
the
means
thing.
that if
If it was commercially viable, it would just.
it is commercially
But wait.
viable.
You
It is.
like capitalism? Is it illegal to put that stuff in like normal filling stations?
The German government made it illegal to use that fuel.
Why hasn't it been used in America?
How should I know?
I don't know.
Like in my
this just
country,
sounds
in
like
my
crazy
country, you could-
conspiracy stuff to me.
It's not it's a fact. This is in the newspaper.
Oh no, I get it. I'm just saying when I
It's
hear
not a
that
conspiracy.
stuff,
It's
I'm
in the
just
news.
like,
It's a fact.
but I'm a capitalist,
The official,
and I'm like, why doesn't
yeah.
capitalism
so
just
how do you
rule on
feel
that?
about this?
Because
Like,
you've got an
I
entire
don't know
planet.
if you let this sink in enough. If you let this sink in enough. So there is a solution that reduces diesel emission, and diesel emission is a big thing because it's not just your Aunt Ginny.
If you could
driving to
reduce
shop.
diesel emissions, you wouldn't
By
need particulate
85%,
filters
by
and all that
85%,
stuff.
no particle filter. Just
what I'm saying.
straight
If you
exhaust.
could delete all that stuff.
Your Hummer with no diesel particulate filter, anything, your Hummer could have 85%
That
less.
is a huge incentive for Ford and everybody else to use it if it works, because they could delete all that
Exactly,
stuff.
that's the whole thing. And what does
Maybe.
the German government say? You can't use it because we made our policy for EV. That's a fact. That's been in every newspaper. So that voids.
I can't read German.
I'll translate for you. Like, there's enough people all over the world. There's German people commenting on Lone Star Drift. They'll know this. So here's the thing. That voids all the climate talk, you know, because it would mean that they don't want a solution for climate problems. They want to push EVs. You know what I mean? That this is pretty huge, you know. So that means that if somebody somewhere would invent a way to make my M3 and your S14 run on water tomorrow,
That can't happen.
they would say, no, that's not allowed. So if somebody solves the actual problem that's being used to push and to take freedoms away from you, because we haven't talked about that yet. So if somebody has a solution for this this alleged climate problem, it's getting outlawed. And that is bizarre. That is bizarre. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That is a fact. That is a
Teslas
fact.
haven't even had a subsidy on them in the United States for the last year or two.
So?
Well, I'm just saying, I don't even think about that stuff for the most part. They're going to try and do another subsidy. It's other companies right now having the subsidies because they haven't hit the mark of 100
It's
or
a certain
200,000.
amount of it's 400,000 or
So
300,000. Yeah.
my point is I wanted to have the conversation on the merits of the technology, of the driving, of all of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And you keep making it about the politics.
Because it's
about
you can't
capitalism.
disconnect. Yeah, and it is about
And I'm just
politics.
saying, I understand you're from a different part of the world.
Yeah.
That you have. I'm a Texan. It's just very different in Texas. We're gonna
For now, it is
have
for now.
Cybertrucks.
But you know, it's a
I'm
valve.
sure
But
everything's
you're
gonna
not going to
change.
be able to go back. So it's a valve, like a valve on your wheel. It's a one-way thing. If Joe Biden mandates all of Austin or DFW to have electrical vehicles, you're never going to go back. Even if there's 10 Republican presidents, it's never going to happen. So that's why I'm saying. That's why I said I'm from the future, because we already have this. We already have this.
You won't let me escape this conversation.
No, I won't, because it's super important, especially for you. Like, you are a car guy.
Yeah.
You are, in a way, doing something that's not economically viable. You could make much more money doing something else. So you do it with your heart and not with your head. You know, it's not.
I kind of think,
so,
by the
so
way,
you, so
one
somebody
second,
like
I'm not going to discount what you're saying.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I think that I have kind of already given up on the fact that I think the world is going in another direction and that we're dinosaurs. And I kind of had that thought for a while.
So?
But I was just going to say, like, I think cars are getting crazy expensive. Cars are getting crazy complicated. I feel like in a lot of ways, like, you're a carburetor guy. You're a generation behind on some of those things that I like. You know, I'm more of a fuel injection guy or whatever.
Well,
but,
one of my cars is carbureted.
right, but we're still going to just call you the carburetor guy.
Good, great, fantastic. I'll take it.
So I was going to say, the differences between everything, I feel like, how do I say, like, I feel like
you
I've
accepted
given
it.
up.
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
I accepted
Why?
it.
Why?
Oh, because it's not just electric vehicles. It's not just anything. It's the whole industry went crazy. Like, no longer do the car companies necessarily want to homologate cars and go racing and make cool cars. No longer does Toyota have a golden economy and do they want to make Mark IV Supras and Skyline GTRs and everything in the same way. Like, even the GTRs we get nowadays, I'm just not interested in because it's a big, heavy car that's whatever. Like, they just don't make the types of cars we want because of
why?
safety regulations.
You know
Why?
Because you and a lot of other people accept that.
Well, are we going to go fight them and say we don't want passenger safety crash ratings and we want glass headlights back?
You
and we want
you think
cool front
that
end?
you think that there's no way for these? So we're like so many decades after the lunar landing, and you think these companies cannot make a car that feels like a Mark IV Supra and has the quality of a Mark IV Supra? You think that's physically impossible?
No, I just think
I'll
that
try
those
to give you-
companies don't want to anymore because they're not interested.
And you're allowing it to happen because you're accepting
I'm an
it.
individual.
Yeah, but
that
you
doesn't
have
buy
a lot
new
of
cars
followers. Like
anyways.
I have like 800 followers on YouTube. You've got 100,000 followers. You should be one of the people that's like resisting this trend with every fiber in your body. You know,
It's
And
fair,
very important.
But even with, I was going to say, we're just all such a minority being car enthusiasts. Car enthusiasts don't even buy manual transmission cars anymore.
Yeah.
There's not enough of us left to push the needle for the car industry to care. They work on such big numbers. And we're not even buying the enthusiast cars that they make. Like,
Yeah.
we don't even vote with our pocketbook. We have always bought secondhand cars for the most part You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we've always bought that type of stuff. So I was going to say, we don't even have the ability to vote. We're kind of like those guys online that you hate that's like, hey, how much is that transmission, that dog box? And you're like, $6,000. And they're like, oh,
Yeah, so
I'll get this
But
other one
how
for
do you go
$300.
from that
But
to
I was gonna
accepting
say,
it?
we're the same type of people we
Yeah.
hate when we're selling new products. So I think that it's a losing industry there. We can't move the needle for the car industry.
I think you can, and it's not only about that. It's about telling people what's right. You know, just because like when the Nazis invaded Europe, there was nothing anybody could do, but it doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't resist it.
This is a lot different than the Nazis invading
Well,
Europe.
it's something that was unstoppable, you know, on that comparison is the same thing. So there's politics going on, doing stuff that nobody wants. So everywhere in the world, Europe, America, South America, everywhere, there's politicians coming to power that don't do what people want them to do, and they do all kinds of things that people don't want them to do. That's very weird. And we're accepting it because we're like, I'm too busy in my shop working on my car. I don't care about politics. You know what it is when you're working on your Jay-Z swapped car in your shop and you don't go voting because you're busy or because you're out working to pay for the turbo? It's picking up diamonds on a deserted island hoping to get picked up.
It's called the tyranny of the masses.
Yeah,
though.
because you're not going to vote.
The
And
tyranny
then
of the
somebody
masses.
gets in the office and you work 5 years and you spend all your money and you lose your marriage and everything to build that to Jay-Z S14 and you love it so much. You restore that 66 Mustang and you love it so much. And you've been so busy with it that you didn't vote and that you were like, yeah, I don't care. I don't have an opinion about that stuff. I don't care. That you're going to have that car finished in 2024 and it's going to be outlawed by that time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if you're saying like, we can't change it, we're not the guys that buy brand new cars. It doesn't matter. It's about the message. So there's a lot of people that need to be swayed and that they don't even have to agree with us, but they need to know our side of the story.
Young people don't even necessarily like cars in large numbers.
Great.
I'm just saying, like, there's not enough of us to vote to change the needle, I think.
Yeah, but if you really want...
I think we're going to get overpowered by the masses, and that's just how it is.
No, I don't think so. I think there's a lot, and that's the thing, there's a lot of YouTubers with a lot of followers, and I think that they are being way too political correct, and they should stand up to this kind of stuff, because this is going to bring down drifting and motorsports and all that stuff.
I think drifting probably has another 15 to 20 years in
but
it.
why? Why are you going to accept that? Like, you live your life, right? You've made sacrifices for drifting, and many of them.
I just don't think that as the world changes, I think that we're going to be... Here, take this for instance. In 20 years, you're going to be just like a horror. How do I say this? What was socially acceptable to do? I'm saying this very badly, and I want to be careful. Certain things that were normalized 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 20 years ago, are now make you the worst human on earth. So say you hated gay people or something like that.
Yeah.
And you hated gay people because that was normal. And then the children grow up and you're just living the same normal life everybody did back then. You are now the awful old grandpa guy that's bigoted, that hates people or whatever. It's the same thing, I think, going to be with like destroying the environment. I think that's going to be the huge next ideological thing.
It
That
already
children,
is.
wait, but I was going to say that children hate their older people for. And they're like, you destroyed the economy and you destroyed the environment, old man.
Yeah.
And you driving down the road
Yeah.
is the same as like you beating a gay person up on the side of the road. Like
that's-
just you driving down the road in your
that's the
1966
perception.
Corvette.
But is it about perception or is it about facts? Like, I live in Amsterdam, which is gay capital of Europe. Like, it's the
Okay.
San Francisco of Europe. It's ridiculous to be a racist. It's ridiculous to be opposing equal
Right.
women's rights. It's ridiculous to be that.
Oh, that's a better one.
That's
I
a
should have
fact.
said women's
Yeah,
rights.
so that's ridiculous. But that's a fact, you know. Women are in no way inferior to men. Like, gay people are in no way less valuable than straight people or people of a different race. That's like total nonsense. That's
But
a
kids
fact.
are going to see you as a
Yeah, but
monster
but
driving
is it-
your old
no,
carbureted
because,
car
and
around.
why? Because it's cultivated by media and by politicians.
That's
because
fine.
it's a fact that there's nothing wrong with gay people. That's a fact. There's not one doctor in the world that says gay people are inferior. It just doesn't exist. So that's a fact.
Okay.
But the Tesla thing and so the Tesla thing, that's not a fact.
I
So
should
that
have
has
found a
lot
better
of
thing to
stuff.
argue
Yeah,
on.
No,
But I'm
it's
just
fine.
saying.
So here's the thing. If it's really about the environment, which I'm all for, like we have one planet, blah, 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 totally agree with that. But why are we not implementing this biodiesel thing then, which could solve our problems tomorrow? Why are we forcing people to buy new cars made of aluminum in huge factories? You know how much water and coffee and car factory, like the Tesla mega factories, you know how much energy and environmental waste that is. And sure, they've got all these things like, yeah, but we only use bamboo things for this and that. It's no use. It's people traveling there. They're taking a shit. They're drinking coffee. It's an insane, like, huge ripple effect. So if it's all about the environment,
coffee start to become a part of things?
Like coffee costs energy. It needs to be heated. It needs to be ground. Whatever. Like as soon as you produce a new car, like if you take a Mercedes W124, like the square Mercedes from the 90s.
Yeah.
Or a BMW E34, you know, the 5 Series, like the 88 to 96 BMW 5 Series. Those cars have eternal life. They're probably the pinnacle of automotive engineering. They're safe. They're as fast as your car right now. Maybe it's a little different gearbox. They've got AC. Yeah. You could buy that car when you're 16 and you could drive until you're 96. Why are we not pushing that? That car has been produced once. That energy has been used once. It's a little bit less economical than your brand new 5 Series.
You can go look up studies and it shows the CO2 impact on like each different type of car over the lifespan of it, over the building of it. Like an EV, they say it takes like 3 years to recapture not recapture, but to equal the CO2 of a gas
more
one.
like 30 years. And you know that these
but
studies,
they say it. I
somebody
understand
pays for these studies. Like I
understand scientific studies.
So just to draw back to the thing, I'm going to try to summarize it a little bit. So you're saying like the world's changing this and that, and young people are going to look at me with a '66 Corvette as somebody who beats up gays.
You were Hitler.
But that's a fact. So you're comparing something that's a fact, which is like you should oppose discrimination of gays or women, against something that you should not oppose. Let's say I have a BMW E34 M5. I've had that car for 16, 17 years. That is, I should actually be praised for that, you know, because that car, like I am
That's
not
how
I'm
the kids see it, man.
So they should be educated by people like you. You should tell them, you know, and a lot of the other YouTubers should do that as well. Like all the YouTube guys, all the big YouTube guys, I'm not going to name any names, they're about Skyline GTRs. They're all about the high quality cars of the 80s and the 90s and the 0s.
Don't call RB cars high quality.
Like a Nissan Skyline is a higher quality than almost every other brand new car you could go to dealership. If somebody would say to me, here's 50 grand, Wout, you can buy a brand new company car, I wouldn't know where to go. I would not know where to go. I work on BMWs and Porsches on a daily basis. Some are 1 day old. We've had Mercedes in the shop that were 1 month old, and they have this huge screen. You know, they don't have any gauge, they have this huge screen. Failed. You turn on the car, the screen doesn't work. You know,
yeah. They're too complicated.
They're too complicated, and they're engineered to fail. Because why? Just let me ask you a question.
Planned obsolescence. You're about to explain it to me.
Here's the thing.
He's about to explain planned
car
obsolescence.
companies not oppose this ever spiraling thing of emissions? Because they
get to sell new cars.
Like, that's the whole thing.
I get
so
that.
they don't care about the environment. There's no altruism. You know, altruism, I'll explain. Altruism means that you do something just for the good of it. Like, you know this word. Maybe somebody's watching who's like 15 years old doesn't get it. It means that you have no incentive to do good. It's just doing good. It's like returning the shopping cart at Walmart. Like, you could leave it there. You're not incentivized to bring it back, but you bring it back because it's a decent thing to do. It's called altruism. That does not exist in business, and it does certainly not exist in politics. But it's used by businesses, like car companies, and it's used by politicians to make you vote for them and to make you buy their product. And that makes no sense. Like a company like Volvo or Mercedes, like GM, they don't care about the world. They don't care. They care about their shareholders and they care about money. And they should, you know, because the shareholders pay for everything. And the way for them to sell a car in the 60s was like, the new Chevelle has more legroom than the Ford Falcon. That doesn't work anymore. Now they say like, yeah, we're killing the planet. And they have this commercial with a little girl running through green fields with the sun on her face, like it's so important for our little children. It's sales, it's marketing. And it's the same with, how do you think that politicians get voted? It's consumer marketing. It's like Coca-Cola finding out what people want. Politicians find out what they have to tell people in order to get voted. It's not because they have a certain vision. They are like a blank mind. They're like an ECU that's not being mapped yet. They're blank. And they find out, what do I have to say to become president of the United States? Well, people are big on discrimination. I'm going to say this and that. And I'm going to make sure that my opponent is like made out to be a huge racist. And I'm going to be the person who's going to solve that because people are going to vote for me then. You think that those persons are not racist or they care about the world? No, they care about getting voted as a president or as some kind of minister or something. It does not exist. They do not care about the world. But right now, it's the best ploy to get what you want. You know, it's used as a vessel.
I just wanted to run around, and we're talking about politics again.
Yeah, but Tesla
I can't
is
debate
politics.
him on the merits of like Tesla burnouts.
Tesla is politics, and you should.
I thought you were going to tell me like Teslas don't make noise when they do burnouts.
They don't. They burn.
like-
They burn out, but they don't do burnouts.
That means you
No.
could go street drifting at night and there's no one
You're
around.
not going to be
if you-
street drifting a Tesla because it's going to be like some error. And another thing that we didn't talk about, which is extremely important right now, is the control. Why do you think governments want people to have electric cars? Because if you don't do what they want, they can switch it off just like that. If you don't get that vaccination, your car is not going to turn on.
They can
because
do
you're
that
an
with all modern cars.
How can they do it with my E46 M3? How can
They couldn't do it with a
they can't
2006 electric
Can they
vehicle.
do it with your Humvee?
No.
There you go.
But
so what
I'm
car
saying,
do you want? You want
when
the
you're
Humvee.
talking about old cars, I'm talking about any new car, even a gasoline car, if they wanted to switch off.
So
if
let me
those
tell you
car
this. Let me
companies
tell you
allowed
this.
them to, they
Let me
could.
tell you this. There's two potential presidents running for the
The
American
car
presidency.
dealership can flip it off if you don't pay
So
for
here's
it.
the thing. There's two people. One guy named Peter and one guy named Paul. They're both running for American president. Peter says, if you vote for me, you can buy a Humvee, you can buy anything you want, you know. And the other guy says, I'm going to make you buy a Tesla and I'm going to take money from you. I'm going to increase your taxes to make sure that everybody can buy these things. And then we're going to be able to flick a switch and to make you do exactly what we want. You know who's going to be president? You know, you think there's any American going to vote for that guy? No. Nobody's going to vote for that guy. So what do? They say like, yeah, we need to do that because of this and because of the environment and because of COVID. It makes no sense. It's the means are not correct and the goal is not correct. And people are not seeing this because it's being connected to something. So that makes so much sense. Like racism is bad. Of course racism is bad. The planet is important. Of course the planet is important. But they're hinging it to things that have nothing to do with that. And there's a lot of people that are going to agree with me, but they just can't put it in words. And they're like working hard. They're blue-collar people. They're truck drivers. They're security guards. They're mechanics. And they know something fishy is going on, but they just can't put it in words. But you know, like I got that letter in my mailbox. They're going to get that letter in their mailbox saying like, hey, Mr. Aaron Losey, your Humvee, we can see you have a registered Humvee. You've got 5 months to sell it.
I just want to say my Humvee has documentation on the Humvee engine and everything that says it does not have to be emissions compliant and nothing can happen.
And you think that's like bulletproof vest from any government regulations? You think the car...
Come and take it.
Well, that's the spirit. That's the spirit. That's what I want to hear.
I live in Texas,
That's
man.
the whole thing. That's what I want to hear. That's the only thing I ask for.
I can actually buy a 50 cal attachment from.
Great,
well,
fantastic.
I mean, it's
do it.
hard to buy,
but is it
they make
important
it.
for you? Is our liberties important to you?
Does
or
your
not?
car have a 50 cal attachment?
No. No.
You're like, I can fabricate one.
I can fabricate whatever I want. As long as, like, I just
can
want to
get
be left
grenade
alone.
launchers for mine.
If governments leave me alone, everything's going to be fine. Just let me work. Leave
That's
me
like you
alone.
threatening him.
Let
If you
me
leave
do
me
my
alone, you're gonna
job.
be
Let
fine,
me do my
government.
job. You know, I don't care about paying. I love paying taxes like somebody who's a cripple and can work. I love working for them, but don't come and take my money and push something that's
This
dumb.
is so far down the Tesla rabbit hole.
But it's so important.
What color is your Tesla going to be?
You can tell me right now where I'm wrong. You can tell me where I'm wrong because you can say, like Americans say, like, because I've speak to Americans about this and they say like, nah, I don't think it's going to happen. It's happening in Europe. It's going to happen in cities like San Francisco, New York, and it's going to ooze into, like Texas is going to be the last. There could be Texas becoming a separate country, which is when I'm
No, we
definitely
can't.
moving there. You should. Anyways.
Civil War decided that.
Good,
It'd kill
great.
us all.
Well, there could be another civil war. I don't hope so, of course, but
It would
you
then
know,
be like illegal to fly
the
Texas
problem
flags,
is that
and we'd
what's
be
going
awful
on right
humans.
now and why I understand. So you want me to say that I think it's cool that a Tesla accelerates hard and that there's guys like, is the Dai Yoshihara that's driving that car on Pikes Peak? Anyways, so there's this team that runs this Tesla that you like in Pikes Peak. Great, I have nothing against them.
Oh, you
Cool.
mean the Volkswagen
No,
crazy
a
one?
Tesla. There's a Tesla.
The evasive Tesla.
The evasive. Fantastic,
I showed you
fantastic.
this.
You showed it to me. I've only
Yeah.
seen a picture.
Fantastic.
No, I saw the giant, the
I mean,
crazy.
I've got no problem with that. I've got no problem with that. So if Tesla was on the market like a Porsche or a Chevrolet is on the market and people just
Yeah.
buy it and it doesn't get tax
So you
stimulated.
hate the government subsidies, but you don't hate the product.
If the product
You're
would
like, I
be
hate
in
the
a
product.
total free market, and I understand the threat of the product, because it's the same as what that was I was saying, like with the economy space in an airplane in 1990 being the first class space in an airplane in 2021. There's little steps. So the government said like, this Aaron Losey has this Humvee, we're going to get rid of that because it's anti-social and it's stupid. And you're like, it's liberty. I want to buy the thing. It's mine. I can do with it.
Government sold it to
Sure,
us.
great. Yeah, the government sold
Literally
the
a government
Yeah, the
vehicle.
government ships them in insanely big planes to all kinds of sand countries in the world, and they're going to tell you, like in the Paris Agreement, which Joe Biden is going to put back on the table, and they have like the House is Democrat, the Senate is Democrat, so they're going to be doing that. The Paris Agreement it's going to happen. Donald Trump stopped it, like froze it, or said like if China doesn't do it or if India doesn't do it, it makes no sense for America to do it. I'm not taking sides in that. I'm just stating facts. So Joe Biden is going to tell you that you're not going to be able to drive that car, which they've shipped like 20,000 of them to Afghanistan and Iraq and all those things and drove them around there. And what do you think is going to happen with that car? It's probably going to get shipped back to Afghanistan, and some guy's going to drive it around there. It's not going to make any difference for the
That would be
planet.
so rad for like the military to take mine back and like drive it around on 40s.
Well, if you would get that letter in your doorstep that I got, to sell
Most
my
likely
car.
they would crush it.
Yeah, so it means that the military eventually is going to come back. You know, so you're going to be saying like December 1st, you can't drive that car anymore, and you're still going to be driving it around. You're going to get chased by the police. And if you evade the police, you're going to get roadblocks from SWAT. If you evade them, eventually you end up fighting the military because you're not surrendering your Humvee.
This went down the rabbit hole fast.
Well, it's a fact. Like, let's say what happened if you get a letter. Like, I got the letter that I couldn't drive my diesel Nissan petrol anymore. And if I would still keep driving it, the police would like...
I have a question for you real quickly.
Yeah.
So in Amsterdam with your diesel cars, do they emissions delete them and everything like the Texans do? Texas has all these laws like
know, yeah.
your truck has to have a particulate filter, and Texans just like yeehaw that thing off with the Sawzall.
Yeah.
We don't take this stuff seriously.
Yeah, so if that's a real problem, why not run it on this plant-based diesel? Why not even look into it? You know, if
I think the United States had a big problem with E85 and realized it was super inefficient and cost more. Like
That's
it was-
E85.
Right. So I was going to say
I said
it would-
plant-based
No,
diesel.
I was just saying it would take a while for the Americans to come around to that, because I think right now the Americans are all about.
Wait a minute. So, but
Wait. Let me finish. It's
Sorry.
such an easy story to show windmills and solar panels, and for a normal consumer to think that's perpetual power and free electricity.
it so does not work.
That's fine, but I'm just saying I think it's a very easy sell.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, like free electricity forever kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it's a very easy sell to take that to electric vehicles
Yes.
and just like everything be green. I think it's very difficult to equate biodiesel with cleanliness, because of like diesel is like the dirtiest thing in anyone's mind.
Shouldn't
in the United
it be
States.
about facts?
Well, right, but we just went through the government like litigating and like beating Volkswagen and stuff
Yeah.
into the ground over Dieselgate.
Yeah.
Like that was a huge ordeal that took like a decade.
But how does that
even the
oppose what
people
it,
that
doesn't
own
that like
diesels
subscribe
feel-
to what I'm saying?
That's fine, but I'm just saying it's a ton of people only know things in 30 minutes or 30-second sound bites kind
Yeah.
of thing. And everyone knows that diesel is bad, Dieselgate happened, all the companies cheat with diesel
Why is diesel bad?
because the government has been saying it.
So
And
why?
because-
So people like you and other YouTubers should tell them the real story. Isn't it about
What's
facts?
the real story of Volkswagen
The real
cheating
story is that
emissions
if you take a
scandals?
look at diesel, like a vehicle moves, like your house doesn't move. It doesn't matter if your
Are
house.
you saying it has more
it
BTUs of
moves.
energy
Yeah,
and is more
so there's
efficient
like a
per
diesel.
weight?
Like how many airplanes are flying around on battery power? Nothing. There are kerosene is also an oil-based fuel. Airplanes fly on kerosene.
It's an energy density
excavators and all
problem
this
for
thing.
that, and you're
Yeah, you're like a semi truck that holds. I don't know. Semi trucks are massive in this country. They could do like 80,000 pounds. I don't know how much
Yeah,
payload.
it's
they take.
80,000 pounds for the entire
I guess
combined.
80,000 pounds. Fantastic. So 80,000 pounds. Like that's like Elon got this thing. Well, yeah, the Tesla truck, this and that's going to do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds and all this stuff. It's never going to work. There's no way it's going to work. So diesel, there's nothing wrong with it, and you could easily switch to this biodiesel, and that's despite the government discouraging it. You know how much money gets spent on EV and on solar panels? Let me ask you a question. Solar panels as we know them, like 99% of the technology in solar panels that we have right now, you know when that was invented?
solar panel stuff?
Yeah, solar panels, like the way they are right now.
I mean, I don't know what you mean by
All
right
right,
now,
so
and also
anybody-
I'm not on this.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've
so
had
anybody's
solar-
watching
well,
this video,
wait, they've had
when do you
solar
think
panels
that
like
solar
this.
panels got invented? When do you think solar panels got invented?
They've been
write
in
it down.
commercial-
Write it down.
They've been in commercial use since the 70s.
Yeah, you know when
So
they were
then
invented?
they probably had to be invented at least 40 years before that for them to get
Yeah.
implemented into that.
You know
so
when?
it had to be before the 30s.
Yeah.
So what was it?
1864.
Dang, that took a long time.
You know what? If you should look up the increase in efficiency in solar panels, because people say solar panels, the technology
Oh.
moves so fast.
No.
That's not true.
Yeah,
There's 70
we're almost
billion.
at the end of it.
There you've been on the end
We
of
need
it
a
in
photon to knock
1980.
that over.
Like in 1980, they were at like 34% efficiency, and then it was not a big thing. And then everybody, all the universities and all the big companies like Philips and all those guys started throwing money at it. And then they went from 34 to 35. and then it went from 35 to 36.5, and that's 30 years time for 2.5% efficiency. And the first 20% happened in 1864 to 1930. So people think that these curves with electrical vehicles and with solar and with windmills, they think this curve goes like this. And they're right, because that's what the media tells them and what the politicians tell them. But the curve goes like this. It's flattening already. Like EVs are never going to double their range, and it's never going to happen. And you're only creating a huge problem. Like in the Sahara, which is a huge desert, it's a perfect place to put solar panels. So they made this huge solarium or solar panel farm thing, like acres and acres of solar panels. But solar panels are black. So what happened? So the thing's been there for a couple of years. The ambient temperature there grew. It got way hotter there. Why? Because of the black panels.
Yeah, absorbing all.
So everybody's saying like, yeah, that we should really fight like that 1 degree Celsius, that our temperatures are rising in the oceans, and you see all these like sad classical music clips with an ice block with a polar bear on it, and oh my God, he's gonna die because of that 1 degree Celsius. I think that desert got like 5 degrees Celsius hotter because of the blackness, the black color of those solar panels. It makes no sense. It does not work.
Okay.
The windmills don't work. The solar panels don't work. And it's not like, so you know what governments make you believe? Energy is not green right now. So in my country, 80% of the energy is black. You know, it's not green. And so a couple of years ago, they told us, turn off the light where you're not at home, save electricity. And now they're telling you to buy an electrical car. So you'd think like, all right, so then we probably went from gray energy to green energy in this last 10 years. No, it didn't even change, not even 1%. It was 80% in 2010, and it's 80% gray energy right now. So why are you doing this? And then the government says, you know what they're saying? They say, if enough people get EVs, then we're going to make the energy green. All right, so it's possible to do that. You could do that. You could flick a switch and go to green energy, but you're not doing it because not enough people have electrical cars. What the hell is that all about? And people read that and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. If more people get electrical cars, then the energy is going to become greener. Like how are people not in the street asking for the blood of the people who sell them that nonsense? It makes my blood boil. So you're basically saying that energy companies could switch to green energy anytime they wanted, but they're waiting until 80% of the people have Teslas? Like how do you even come up with that? That's horseshit. Like, sorry, pardon my French, but that is horseshit.
That's okay.
Make sure, like that's the parachute. That's throwing the parachute out of the plane and jumping after it and hoping to catch it. You show me that all that electricity coming from the wall sockets is green. You know, you show me proof of that, and not like certificates buying them in Norway when you're still polluting back home. Actually getting that green energy. Then you can talk to me about Teslas. Do that first. Don't say like we're forcing everybody with tax money to get Teslas. And when everybody's got them, then we're going to think about how we're going to make the energy green. And there's liquid petrol gas, LPG. You know, you could run my M3, you could run your S14 on LPG. It has no emissions. If you want to commit suicide with like the exhaust fumes into your car with an LPG car, it wouldn't work. Like LPG has no...
you can't do that with an electric car either.
You can't do it with an electric car. So it's bad for the emo kids.
Anyway, so it's currently developing a kit for the Teslas?
No.
Like for a Model 3?
No, not currently. No. But you know that there was, like you had this interview with Travis Reeder and that car didn't do well and you really believed in it because you were very much biased in that interview.
I didn't believe in that car, I believe in the concept for it.
But it was better than you thought because you asked him some things and he was negative. You said like something like, yeah, but it had no cooling, and it did have cooling or whatever. It did. I can watch it back. So
they did have
I understand.
cooling for the
Yeah, like
battery
you
packs?
like Tesla.
They had coolant through it?
Yeah.
I think it's neat because people are pushing stuff, and I think it's neat that like things are changing.
But how is it changing? Jay Leno has a Baker Electric 1911.
Because it wasn't a drift car that was being used against other cars.
There was no
and
drift
stuff.
cars in
It's
1911
cool.
anyways.
It's deleting a transmission. For me, it's a significant different driving experience. And it's rad. Cy and I went up and did some canyon stuff in a performance. It was so brutally fast. It was entertaining. I laughed. I enjoyed it.
You and I should go drive a 1966 big block Corvette and see how you feel about that. And that's a lot better for the American economy, and it's a much more honest
How's
car.
it better for the American economy? They haven't made it in
because
forever.
a guy in the corner shop called Gus with $200 worth of tools can fix it for you, and your money goes to Gus, who's going to put food on his table and give his grandkids a new bike instead of it going to some Chinese shareholder in an EV company. That's how it's better. Like this whole EV thing and this whole corporate stuff, it's wiping out the middle class in every country. So you're transferring rights and you're transferring funds from citizens to corporations. Like Tesla or the American government is going to decide when your Tesla's going to run.
But it's going to be like that
Elon
with
is never
any
going
new
to
car.
agree with that. Elon's never going to agree with that. Elon is going to do exactly what the American government wants from them because they are his biggest seller. They are the salesmen of Tesla. Why does Tesla have no dealerships? Because the government sells them. Like the Paris Accord and all that stuff and the whole narrative, that sells Teslas. If the narrative wasn't there, a few people would buy it. You would buy it because it's cool. You know, you would buy it for the tax break. You'd buy it because you like to have quirky
I'm
weird
kind of
things.
too cheap to buy it.
Anyway, so theoretically. So that's the thing. Like,
Theoretically, if I wasn't cheap,
people
I'd buy a
should
new
really
car.
understand like the consequences of going with this narrative, and people should really understand that the mass adoption of EV and that stuff.
All right.
It's the end of your rights, and it's going to be the end.
You got
of
30
drifting
more
motors.
seconds and we're ending, and I'm going to say something real quickly. I think this interview should have been about the overcomplication of new cars and about how cars are
We
no
should
longer...
do one. I've got a really good one on that too.
I think that cars are... I think he went into politics. My problem with cars is they're too expensive and all of these different things and complicated. And like coming to an EV for myself, there's hopefully less to go wrong. It's a much more simplistic car, except it has 7,000 batteries in it.
What if they burn down in front of your house and your kid is sleeping next to it?
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that.
No.
So that's pretty bad.
I mean, what happens if you're going 90 miles an hour down the highway on a trip and you veer off into like oncoming traffic on accident because you're tired and
but
you
that's
die?
that happens
Maybe
with
the Tesla
Teslas.
could have saved you in that.
Or
I
they
mean,
steer you into a crowd of nuns. Like, I'll tell you this.
I don't
I'll
know
tell
what
you
we're
this, I'll tell
talking
you this.
about.
No, like you think that this autopilot thing is going to save stuff? Like it's been possible since the 70s. It's never been done. It doesn't work.
Have you ever driven one?
A what? An autopilot car?
Yeah.
You think I'm crazy? I'm a businessman. You think somebody
Just for like, you just
what
set
if
it
I
on
die?
and you just, we're all gonna die.
Yeah, well, I want to have some sane one. If I die driving Chelsea's RTR 1000 horsepower Mustang, I'm fine. I don't care, you know. But I'm not gonna die because some cheap Chinese part. Yeah, you should Google like the thing like the wooden block that's in these model. What's the big Tesla called with the stupid gullwing doors? Like the
Oh, the
weird
X?
SUV.
Yeah, that
so
thing's
there's
dumb.
this thing that they
thing's
put
real
like
dumb.
this wooden block somewhere in it, like with a clamp, because of some production error. It's really dumb. Google it. So anyway, so the problem is, if you
seen S13s with that too.
name a car, an internal combustion car with a lot of power. Let's say a Porsche 911 Turbo, which is
Yeah.
like the new one, like 700
They're real
horsepower.
fast.
Yeah. Let's say that you live in a street with like 50 houses, and everybody has one of those cars, 700 horsepower.
Oh, I know where you're going. Keep
Yeah.
going. You only have 30 seconds. so
Everybody
make it fast.
switches them
We
on.
gotta end.
They put it in neutral and they put a brick on the throttle, and all night long these things are on 8,300 RPM. Would you feel comfortable? 50 of those cars standing outside doing 8,300
You're gonna
RPM
tell me
all
that
night.
that's what every Tesla is
That's
doing
what
all
every
the
Tesla
time
is
when you're
doing all the
charging
time.
it.
Every Tesla that's
That
charged.
Tesla's gonna creep into your daughter's room at night and burn the
Well,
room
I mean,
down.
I understand tunnel vision when I see it. Like, you just like them and you can't be convinced. But that's fine, you know, you're my friend and it's good. And you should do whatever you
How
want.
many people have to die in their homes because they parked a Tesla in their homes before everyone?
Yeah, how
gets rid of
many
them?
people?
How many?
Yeah, how many
people
rides,
have died?
How many? So there's going to be a point where you're going to want to, you know, run an errand, and the government doesn't switch on your Tesla because of a certain curfew or something.
Yeah.
And you're going to think back, and you're going to be 65 years old, and you're going to be thinking back on this interview.
I'm gonna
and
be in
gonna
there pulling wheel sensors and stuff, making that thing not know
As
what
soon
day of
as
the
you
week
pull
it
the
is.
wheel sensor, the special EV police is going to be at your door, and you're going to go to jail, and you're not going to watch your daughter or boy. It's going to be a daughter or
Daughter.
Yeah, so you're not going to watch your daughter's graduation because you were tampering with the wheel sensor of an EV car that you shouldn't have had in the first place. Like, it's un-American. It's communism. It is communism. That's my opinion. Mark my words. Make a screenshot. Make a mental screenshot.
So this is interview of one with Wout. They're only gonna get more out there and more aggressive.
I'm not going to hold back.
I'm gonna have more of these things. I apologize for not talking enough about the actual physics of a Tesla, the batteries, the cooling, the driving, and everything else.
We can do that.
This veered off. No, I don't. I think we covered everything we need to cover.
We talked about the
We don't need to do
spontaneous
an hour.
fires. Like, the spontaneous
Yeah.
fires are a fact. Google it, spontaneous combustion, BMW.
Yeah, we know it. We know it. There's good
Yeah.
videos on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Good.
There we go.